In Brian De Palma's Scarface, released in 1983, Tony Montana is defined by hunger, money, power, and control. Circling him are three women that each reflect a different part of his fractured psyche. Elvira represents the future dream, wealth, status, and the life of a refined American businessman. Gina embodies hope and integrity that Tony can be more than his worst impulses. His mother anchors the past, a figure of moral judgment representing the redemption of his past that he can never claim. Together, they expose Tony's contradictions, which is fatal. As much as he is the head of his family, household, obtaining wealth, being the kingpin, leader, and drug lord, he can never be an adequate and respectable man, husband, father, brother, or son. His obsession and addiction with status and desire, control, and respect becomes his failure to reconcile these parts of himself he so desperately is trying to hold on to. And because of that, each woman rejects him in their own way, reminding us that beneath the bravado, Tony is deeply flawed and incapable of love or trust. Elvira is the dream he can't sustain, Gina is the woman he doesn't deserve, and his mother is the maternal figure who will never give him the unconditional love he craves. For all of his power, Tony is never enough. His empire may be built on excess, but at his core, he is defined by inadequacy, and that is what ultimately destroys him. Hello world, and welcome to Cinema Nostalgica, where we break down nostalgic hidden gems. Let's begin with Elvira, the hollow dream girl. Elvira Hancock is the classic image of the 1980s dream woman. She's tall, blonde, chic, untouchable. She is introduced in a literal glass elevator, descending like a goddess as Tony stares at her, a literal symbol of class and privilege. She is framed as a prize, a commodity, something to be acquired along with Frank Lopez's empire. Her whiteness and class privilege make her the idea, quote-unquote, trophy for Tony. She isn't just beautiful, she represents assimilation into the upper echelons of American capitalism. When Elvira dances with Tony, she says that she's from Baltimore. And when Tony is trying to ask more questions about where she's from, she says it doesn't really matter, seeming to try to forget her past. You must think, what got her in the position to be with Frank anyway? This may be due to either being spoiled, got everything she asked for, or had a rough past. Her cynical behavior and opinion proves to work on Tony. She insults him and his taste, but she does seem to level him up. The perfect example of this is when Tony picks her up in the yellow top-down with tiger print interior. She says she wouldn't be caught dead in that thing. So what does Tony do? He goes and buys a Porsche. He even says, "I wouldn't have bought the car if you didn't like it." Her opinion of him matters more than anyone else's. He wants her taste, her validation, her recognition that he belongs. Throughout their relationship, she becomes his tutor on how to live as a rich American man. Without her acceptance, all of Tony's wealth and power feel incomplete. Tony never courts her with intimacy. He pursues her like he pursues a mansion, a tiger, or a pile of cocaine. What's striking is her passivity. Elvira rarely initiates action. She exists as a reward to be transferred from Frank Lopez to Tony. When she is confronted at the Babylon Club by Frank, and Tony is there trying to get with her, she doesn't say a word. She doesn't defend Frank, and she doesn't say she wants to be with Tony. She's silent. Again, being a metaphor of just an object. Elvira is a prisoner of male power. She moves from one man to another with little autonomy. She's not choosing love, but trapped in transactional relationships. Frank even uses Elvira to negotiate with Tony for his life. She embodies the ultimate trophy in the capitalist fantasy, beauty, status, luxury. But Elvira, as she is lifeless. She's cold and has a detached demeanor that reflects the emptiness of that dream. She looks glamorous, but she's hollow, drug-addicted, and miserable. Their marriage is filled with resentment. Elvira is not a partner, but a mirror, reflecting Tony's own emptiness back at him. Her character is defined by distance. Elvira is cold, uninterested, and frequently shown isolated in the frame. Look at her body language. She's rarely warm, always distant, often shot behind glass, in cars, or through reflections. Cinematography reinforces her as an object on display, sitting in silence at the dinner table, drifting through clouds of cocaine. She doesn't drive Tony's story forward so much as embody its hollowness. Elvira does have privilege and could have made something of herself and of her life, but her bad taste in men, addiction, are her downfall. This makes her the exact mirror to Tony. During their poolside conversation, she said, "The land of opportunity is maybe only for you, Tony." That implies that even though she has all of this privilege, she can't make anything of herself. In the scene where Tony is inside of the jacuzzi, Tony mocks her and says she needs to do something with her life. Tony calls her a bobblehead. So that tells me he knows that she has no substance to her. And the truth of the matter is, Elvira doesn't want to do anything with her life. She wants to just sit back, enjoy her drugs, drink. She enjoys the spoils of the luxury lifestyle that's awarded to her, and she wants to remain a trophy. She doesn't bring anything to the table. At least a typical housewife should provide comfort or an ounce of positivity, but she provides neither. Her presence alone of just being there and dealing with Tony and his mess is enough to make her feel entitled to a portion of his empire. And to be honest, that is all Tony deserves. He asked for it and now he's got it. He's made his bed and now he has to lie in it. Same with Elvira. She knew the man she was marrying, and she should have known that being with drug lords only leads to disaster. Look at what happened to Frank. Did she think Tony would change? I doubt it. I think she always knew she would be there for a good time, not a long time. She's a mirror to Tony. Just as he can never have enough, she can never be fulfilled either. Her addiction is a reflection of Tony's addiction, which is power. Both are destructive, compulsive, and insatiable. Their marriage is doomed because they both seek annihilation through excess. We explore her downward spiral as a female parallel to Tony's violent unraveling. She only leaves Tony when she realizes that they are losers. By the time she walks out of Tony's life, she's strung out and exhausted. She's just as destroyed by the cocaine and violence as everyone else. Her privilege gave her a pedestal, but the world of Scarface drags her down. Now let's look at Gina, the untouchable innocent. Gina Montana, Tony's younger sister, is the opposite of Elvira. Where Elvira is icy, Gina is warm. Where Elvira is cynical, Gina is naive. Elvira has seen too much, and Gina has seen too little. Unlike Elvira, who he views as an external status symbol, Gina represents an internal fantasy, purity, innocence, and the uncorrupted version of family or himself that he wants to preserve. Gina's dreams of being independent were shattered the moment Tony re-entered her life, replacing her self-determination with his suffocating control. It's as if Tony wants to suffocate Gina's dreams and ambition, molding her into the same kind of hollow figure Elvira has become. Yet, at the same time, he despises Elvira precisely for that lack of drive. In doing so, he traps himself in a vicious cycle of control and contradiction, destroying the very qualities he claims to value. Where Elvira is passive, Gina is active. She asserts her desires for freedom, for Manny, for independence. But every time she asserts herself, Tony responds with violence. Ultimately, his inability to see her as a person rather than a possession leads to tragedy. Tony projects two extremes of womanhood. This split mirrors a classic psychoanalytic concept, the Madonna and horror complex. Tony could only see women as either sacred and untouchable or sexual and corrupt. He cannot accept that a woman could be both loving and desirable. His relationships with both women show us that Tony is incapable of real love. Instead, he reduces women to symbols in his tragic rise and fall. Elvira is the whore. She is desired, glamorous, sexually available but cold, and incapable of nurturing Tony. While Gina is the Madonna, innocent, pure, loving, but again off limits. She cannot fulfill Tony's desire without violating taboo. She starts as a symbol of innocence, dancing, laughing inside of nightclubs, but Tony's hyperprotection keeps her from forming her own identity. Tony's obsession with Gina reveals his warped sense of love. On the surface, he's protective, warning her to stay pure, to stay away from men he deems unworthy. But beneath that lies something darker. Tony treats Gina not just as a sister, but as his most sacred possession, the one woman in his life who represents unconditional love, something that he cannot obtain or sustain. This obsession takes on incestuous undertones. Tony wants to control her sexuality, dictate who she can be with, and ultimately keep her for himself. When he finds her with Manny, his best friend, he kills Manny instantly in a jealous rage, not because Manny betrayed him, but because Gina belonged to him, Tony, in his mind. Gina represents the love Tony can't corrupt, yet in his attempts to protect her, he destroys her too. Tony can neither love Elvira nor accept Gina. With Elvira, he destroys their marriage through obsession with power. With Gina, he destroys her life through obsession with control. He doesn't know how to love a woman without destroying her. The two women are written as opposites, functioning like mirrors that expose different sides of Tony's obsession and insecurities. And what makes Elvira and Gina's contrast compelling is that despite their differences, they both end up in the same place, trapped in relationships with drug dealers, stripped of autonomy, and ultimately destroyed by Tony. Both women's arcs reveal how women in this world are reduced to objects, the icy trophy or the protected innocence. Their race and class shape how they are treated, Elvira as a glamorous symbol of quote-unquote making it in America, Gina as the fragile, untouchable symbol of purity, but neither escapes destruction. So who does Tony love? He loves himself the most. The tragedy of Scarface is that Tony doesn't truly love either Elvira or Gina. He loves what they represent. He loves Elvira because she's proof that he made it. She's not a person to him, but a status symbol. And he only loves Gina because of what she represents, which is that innocence in a world that has corrupted him. But his love is not protective, it's possessive. Both Elvira and Gina show us that Tony is incapable of intimacy because love requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is the one thing Tony refuses to allow. In actuality, both women don't even love Tony. They don't really get to know him. They also see him as an object. If Elvira loved him, she wouldn't constantly insult him. And if Gina loved him, she would have told him about her relationship with Manny, wanting his blessing, making sure he was okay with it. Both women do not know Tony, and they really don't know what he's capable of. The only woman who does is his mother. Tony's mother is his moral counterweight. His mother is the only one who refuses to be bought. When Tony shows up with dirty money, she rejects it, calling him out as a criminal. She sees through his ambition as nothing more than greed and destruction. Tony tries to force her into his world by offering her material wealth, but she clings to dignity and morality. And Gina just doesn't understand it. That's why she started leaning into Tony anyway. She wants to get a piece of this American Pie dream, but the mother is rooted in doing what's right. In a movie where almost everyone eventually bends to money, drugs, or power, Tony's mother stands firm. She represents the old world values of hard work, family, and honesty, which Tony has twisted into ruthless ambition. She embodies the rejection of Tony's version of the American dream. Where Tony thinks power equals respect, she shows him that real respect comes from integrity, something he could never grasp. These three women map out Tony's rise and fall, his obsession with controlling Gina, possessing Elvira, and buying his mother's respect exposes his inability to actually connect with women or anyone as people. He only sees them as symbols. In a way, each woman pulls at a different thread of Tony's destiny, and together they weave the downfall that he cannot escape. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it to the end of this video. Please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.